backend guru family. So what we're going to be looking at today is how we can create our Django web development application. So I've labeled down the things that we're going to do in this introductory video. We're going to set up the Visual Studio, the VS Code for Visual Studio for version control, and then we're going to set up the virtual environment, and then we're going to set up the Django project, and then we'll create a super user, and then we'll connect to the Django admin. Version control is a brilliant practice if you're aiming to become a software engineer, so it's very much important that you sort of get the hang of how to do it from the get-go. Setting up the virtual environment is part of the Python programming world life, or in Django life, so that you don't have dependencies that will crash your system. That's why we need the virtual environment. So it's a must to always have it. You never want to install Django on a global scale. You also want to have it installed on a mini virtual environment. And then we're going to create the super user who will be responsible for connecting to our Django admin. So with that having been said, let's get on with the show. So first we're going to do, I'm just going to create a folder here in this directory on my desktop. You can create your own on your own directory, it doesn't really matter, and I'll just simply call it Django sports container. Now the reason why I'm adding the word container at the end is because this is exactly what it does. Its entire job is just to contain my project or my project inside. So you're gonna see how that works in a second. So I'll click on open in terminal, and then I'm going to type in code space dot, that will open up Visual Studio Code. So that's exactly what we want. So now that we're here, what we want to do is to set up Visual Studio Code for version control, right? So I'm going to open my terminal. There are two ways of doing it. Either you go to terminal and you say in your terminal, or you simply come to the bottom left corner. I find it easier. I click on it and then I choose terminal. And so once I'm in, I'll just simply set up, and then I'll have to simply run the command git init. So this is obviously presuming that you've got git installed. If you don't have git installed, I have added a link at the bottom of the in the description part, so that you can simply be able to use that to install git for your particular version control system. Specifically, you are going to want to set up the git CLI, because we'll be using a lot of the commands that we'll be using for Git and GitHub are going to be coming in from that perspective. So just simply say git init, and then I'll say enter, and then immediately it creates the new branch for me. So that's awesome. Now the next thing that we want to create is to install, there's something called Pipenv, which is a combination of pip that creates the virtual environment and allows us to install Python packages. So it's almost like our version of npm, if you may compare the two of them if you'd like. So the way that usually it works on some computers, it's pip install pipenv. If I'm not mistaken, that usually works. And then as you can see, I already have it installed, so there is no need for me to install it. So if you don't have it, you're probably going to see a different response. Now once you have it set up, obviously pip usually comes in by default with Python. In case it's not, just simply drop a message in the group down there, and then we'll fix it. But then the command is super simple. Python-m install pip, I believe is the command. So once you have done that, because I'm trying to keep this one a bit shorter, we'll just simply type in the command pipenv, and then we'll type in the command install Django. So back in the day, you had to first create your virtual environment, and then activate your virtual environment, and then install your Django application. So Pipenv automatically, and then create a requirements file after you've done that. So what Pipenv does is that it takes all of those 4 different steps, and then it combines them into this single command here. Obviously the activating command is just a separate command, but it takes the first 3 steps and then combines them. So it's installing Django for us, and it's also creating a virtual environment in that same process. So I'm just simply going to say install, I'll press enter, and then you should now be able to see the pip file up here. So the pip file is Pipenv's way of keeping track of all of the requirements. So instead of using a requirements.txt, which some of you might have encountered if you've been looking at Django for a while, you've possibly run into it. And so if you click inside, you can see the packages that you've installed, and then if you've got other dev packages, they'll appear, and then it also tells you the Python version that's there. Good. So now that we have that sorted out, you're seeing the 2 here that's appearing on the source control. Don't worry about that. That's just simply telling us that we've 2 uncommitted changes. So I'm gonna add another file, which is a readme file, readme.md. A readme.md is just a quick way of letting people know what it is, what the heck it is that they're looking at. Okay, that's exactly what it is. So I'm just going to copy all of this information from my text file, and then I'm going to close it, and then I'm going to just paste it all inside the readme, then I'll save it. And so obviously you can just pause the video and type it so that you can always come back and figure out, okay, so for lesson 1 this is what we did, or you can just come back to the video obviously and just watch it again. So once we have this part sorted out, we're going to look at some interesting things. So first, we have set up the version control. We now have to set up the virtual environment. So after running that install command, if you look back in the terminal, you can see it says that to activate the project's virtual environment, simply run pipenv shell. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to run pipenv shell, then I'll press enter, and then now it tells me that it's been activated. Now another thing I want to do is that I want to press Ctrl P, and then I'm going to put the right angle brace, then I'll type in select interpreter for Python. Okay, once I see it, I'm going to click on it, and then I'm going to look for the name of my virtual environment, which is usually something like Django sports container, etc., or something like that, right? And so once you find it, select it, and then now you see that it makes your life a whole much easier for Visual Studio Code to recognize that this entire project is based on a Django particular application. So once we've done that, let's now move on to the second step. So we've set up the version control, we've set up the virtual environment, and so we're now going to then set up the Django project. So you probably realize that setting up that for each change that we're going to make, the number of the source control will increase. That's just because we've uncommitted changes. We're going to look at how to do that possibly towards the end of the video. So in here, I'm just simply going to run, if I'm in the virtual, I'll run Django admin, and then I'll press tab. So I'll write DJ A and then tab, and that usually completes. If it completes, it means that my virtual environment is activated, and that means I can keep working in it. Okay, so I'll write Django admin, then I'll type in start project, and then I'll press, I left the name, start project, and then now I have to give it a name. So I'll just simply say sports project. Okay. Sports blog project for the sake of simplicity. And then once I've done that, you see that a folder has been created, which comes in with a file code, with a folder called sports blog project inside of it, and the manage.py. So what does this mean? This means that, let me just come in here. This means that the sports blog project is going to be having is going to be the one that's responsible for hosting our applications, which is something that we're going to do in the next video. So the manage.py is the one that we're going to be using for pretty much everything from this point onwards. Now we're just quickly going to test to see if our server is actually working and if we've successfully created a Django project. So I'm going to type in Python manage.py, then I'll type in run server. Now press enter. And then you see that it tells you have 18 unapplied migrations, may not work, etc. We're going to look at that, at how to fix that in a second. So in the meantime, I'm going to open my browser, and in the browser I'll just type in localhost 8000, and then I'll press enter. And if you're seeing this page, my congratulations, you've successfully managed to build your very first Django project. Yeah, good job. Pat yourself on the back for that. So once you've done that, now these migrations, so once you've done that, that's okay. So I'm just simply gonna, before I stop it, I'm gonna actually just stop it, and then we're gonna move on to the next part, which is creating a super user. So I'm just simply gonna create the super user, then we'll fix that error last, okay, after creating the super user. So we'll type in the command python manage.py create super user. Okay, and then press enter. Oops, what error was that? Oh yes, now the reason why it gave us the error is primarily because we did not create the databases that are needed for like authentication.user, which is this error that you're seeing here. There is no table for it. So we have to remove everything and to type in python manage.py. Then we have to say make migrations, and then afterwards we're going to type python.py migrate, excuse me, and then it will do all of these cool migrations. Now one of the cool things that you might want to see is that you want to add an extension. There's an extension for you to view, because Python comes by default with the SQLite viewer, with the not SQLite viewer, but like with a SQL database, SQLite database, and it's extremely difficult for us to read it. So I recommend that you install this particular little guy called SQLite viewer. It has over 500,000 installations. It's extremely effective for viewing the different projects. Otherwise, you won't be able to clearly read. So this is what our database looks like, because we currently have it. If I uninstalled that plugin, this one, I want you to just see the difference in how the SQLite file is going to look. Reload required. Okay. So now that we've reloaded, then I click on my file, and then I can see now the dblite SQL file. I won't be able to view it. So if you don't have the SQLite viewer, this is possibly something that you might bump into. So if you want to install it, just come into the search, into the extensions tab, type SQL viewer, and then go for the one by Florian Klumpfer. I hope I'm not butchering his name, his or her name. Don't actually know if it's a person. So once we've done that, we're going to go back into our project, and now you see that we are able to view our projects, and we're able to see the information much more clearly, right? We have the authentication user, the information, etc. Good. So I'm going to close that, and then now we're going to create a super user, right? So I'm going to say python manage.py. Then I'm simply going to say create super user, right? And then now it tells you to create the super user. So I just need to say the backend guru, and then for the email I'll leave it blank. For the password, you can put any password you want. The strength is purely up to you. I always go for the simpler passwords, because this is not ever going to be in production. So I don't have to worry about the security aspect of it, but then you would probably want to always consider the security aspects of it. So now that we've done that, let's then do the last step of our video today, which is connecting to the admin, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to simply say python manage.py run server again. And now you see that we don't have that error that we saw at an earlier stage. You remember that we don't have this error of you have unapplied migrations. And the reason why we don't have this error anymore is because of the command that we made to make the migrations. Okay, each time you do anything that affects the database, you have to make the migrations, and then you have to type in the command migrate afterwards. All right, so with that having been said, let's go back into the browser, and then let's type localhost 8000/admin. And this takes you to the admin panel for it, right? So I'm just simply going to type in the backend guru, and then I'm just simply going to put in the password that we had created. Oops. Interesting. Did I forget my password? Let's try it again. 1 2 3 4 5 7 8 9. Yeah, reading out my password out loud, probably horrible security practice, but it's not even ever can affect anything. So once we've done that, you're then taken into the Django admin site. So congratulations, you've successfully managed to be taken into the Django admin site. So we've successfully done the 4 things that we wanted to do, the 5 things. So we've managed to connect our version control, and then we've set up our virtual environment, and we've managed to connect to the database. So I strongly suggest that you can explore this particular side of Django. We're going to look at how to explore it further in the upcoming tutorial, in the upcoming week, and how to style our own entrances into the database. How do we get our own database to appear in this back end, so that we can add something here and then it appears in the front end. So we're going to be looking at how to do all of those cool stuff. So with that for now, cheers, enjoy yourself. I hope you stay safe, whatever you